It showed in the twinkle in his eye. It showed that he knew and recognized what I've sometimes called the element of irreducible rascality in himself. And he knew it so strongly and so clearly.
A ver, anda al canal de este chaboncito, anda al canal de este chaboncito, sí.
Estoy en el
A ver, y si haces así, por ejemplo, un sonido. Lista, shots.
Ahora hago eso que estás entiendo. Acá, mira, voy al canal.
Sí.
Ahí está.
Ahí, mira, pone. ¿No entra? Ah, te entra ahí primero.
Ahí está, sí, mira.
A ver,
aparece.
sí. ¿Entra? Mi gato. A ver, sí. ¿Entra? Mi gato. A ver, sí. Claro. Y ahora le puedo cancelar el micrófono y le puedo poner, a ver, yo le puedo cancelar el micrófono.
Se va a escuchar,
Le puedo
claro.
poner, sí. Yo le puedo cancelar el micrófono.
Se va a escuchar,
Le puedo
claro.
poner, sí. Uy, uy, uy.
$75 años, eso es el tiempo que obtienes si tienes suerte. 75 inviernos, 75 primaveras, 75 veranos y 75 otoños. Cuando lo ves así no es mucho tiempo, ¿verdad? No desaproveches y saca tu cabeza de la carrera de ratas y olvida las cosas superficiales que ocupan tu existencia y vuelve a lo que es importante ahora.
Reject stagnation. Reject the myth that learning is for young people. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Learn all your life, from your successes, from your failures. Bad times have a scientific value. These are occasions a good learner wouldn't miss. What is it trying to teach me? Individuals who remain vital have learned not to be imprisoned by fixed habits, attitudes, and routines. We build our own prisons and serve as our own jailers. But if we build the prisons ourselves, we can tear them down ourselves. If we're willing to learn, the opportunities are everywhere. We learn from our work and from our friends and families. We learn by accepting the obligations of life, by suffering, by taking risks, by loving, by bearing life's indignities with dignity. You learn to bear with the things you can't change. You learn to avoid self-pity. You learn not to burn up energy and anxiety. You learn that most people are neither for you nor against you, but rather are thinking about themselves. You learn that no matter how much you try to please, some people are never going to love you, a notion that troubles at first, but is eventually relaxing. Among your obligations is an appointment with yourself. One of the most valuable things you learn is that ultimately you're the one who's responsible for you. You don't blame others. You don't blame circumstances. You take charge. If you're going to keep on learning, your surest allies will be high motivation and enthusiasm. People can achieve meaning only if they've made a commitment to something larger than their own little egos, whether to loved ones, to fellow humans, to work, or to some moral or religious concept. Confidence is built upon an experience of success. When we first begin any undertaking, we're likely to have very little confidence, because we haven't learned from experience that we can succeed. We need to form the habit of remembering past successes and forgetting the failures. This is the way both an electronic computer and the human brain are supposed to operate. Practice improves skill and success. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, and that though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through the toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given him to till. The power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do, nor does he know until he's tried. Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. No one can even estimate the number of people who live nervous, anxious, unhappy lives because they daily attempt the impossible, which is to be like someone else. There are people who don't realize the truth of Emerson's words that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide. He must have used the word suicide because we have to kill that which is natural in ourselves when we attempt to be like someone else. They need to recognize the truth also that the power that resides in them is new in nature, that it has never appeared before in just that way on earth, that if they'll learn about and develop their own powers, they'll have no need of envy or imitation. Envy is ignorance because it means a person is ignorant of his own powers and abilities, his one-of-a-kind natural talent. He's never looked within himself for his own road to greatness, but instead seeks it in the lives of others. And when he fails to succeed, as do those he envies, as fail he must because he can't possibly be exactly like them, his image of himself shrinks. Not understanding that he is unlike those he envies, he doesn't realize that this simple fact lies at the bottom of his failure. Nor does he understand that he can be as successful as anyone on earth if he will build upon that power that resides in him. As Emerson put it, the power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do, nor does he know until he's tried. This is why a parent is off base when he says to a child, "Why aren't you like so-and-so, like a brother or some model child? Look what he's doing." The parent doesn't understand that it's a human impossibility for the child to be like so-and-so and to do what he does in the same way. Instead, a parent would be wise to say, "Don't worry about so-and-so. He's found his strength, and he's building on it. You have a strength of your own, and when you find it, you can build just as high." Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. When a person finds himself, when he stops imitating and envying others, there's something in his nature that says to him, "This is it. You found your road at last." Real success is a matter of finding yourself and building upon what you find, just as of those whom so many envy. Every person is born to be a star at something. The purpose of his or her life is to discover it, and then to spend his or her years building upon that plot of ground it was given to him and to her to till. With such an abundance of everything, We're often like children standing in front of a mile-long candy counter or a person looking at a really good restaurant menu. How do you make a selection from such abundance? If you decide on one thing, you're passing up all those other things. As a result, many people choose impulsively. Often, too, by getting too many little things, they dissipate their means, and thus they're unable to obtain larger, more important things. So it's wise to spend some time thinking about just exactly what we will want from the years ahead of us. What will comfort and enrich us on snowy or rainy days? What will cause us to get up in the morning with interest and enthusiasm in our later years? And to what do we wish to commit ourselves for at least a part of our days that's big enough and interesting enough to keep us happily occupied for the rest of our lives? A person who lacks confidence in himself is a person who has never really tested his powers. A test, to be valid, must include a whole lot more than one or two tries. Imagination is everything. That's everything, not to be confused with some things. Imagination is everything. I remember reading in the book Papillon that incredible tale of multiple escapes from the French penal colony in French Guiana, that no matter what the hardships were, or how wretched the escapees' lives, they were filled with joy as long as they were moving toward freedom. Pain, suffering, starvation, exhaustion, constant danger were all worth bearing as long as they were moving toward freedom. And this is why we need to reaffirm our goals on a regular basis, why we need to make sure we know what it is we're moving toward. We human beings are the only creatures on the planet Earth that are born into a natural state of disorientation with our world. That is, while all other creatures are guided by instinct of which they're neither aware nor have the capacity to question, each of us, as human creatures, was given the godlike power to create his or her own life. And each of us does exactly that all the years of his or her life. Every day we put in place actions and ideas that will determine the shape and substance of our tomorrows.
I think that's what most people are looking for. I think they're looking for an answer outside of themselves, and they're never going to find it. If you're going to change you, you're going to have to find out something about yourself. So I started to study myself. I found most people don't know who they are. They really don't.
What do you mean? I mean, I know my name, I know my age, I know where I live.
Yeah, that's not
what
you,
else
though.
is there?
You know, that's
what
just
size,
it. If you ask the average person who they are, they'll give you their name. They'll say, I'm Bob Proctor, but I'm not. Bob and Proctor are two words. My parents give them to me. They're called names, but it's not me. It's my name. Then somebody will say, well, this is me, but this isn't me either. It's my body. It's my hand, my leg, my body, my name. Who am I? See, I think we live simultaneously on three planes of understanding. We're spiritual creatures, we have an intellect, and we live in physical bodies. Because we lack awareness or understanding of who we are, we're totally locked into a physical world, and we let things outside of us control us. 95% of the population are reacting to life. They're not really living at all. Success is a funny word. Nightingale had a great definition for it. He said a person's successful if they know where they are, and they know where they're going, and they're progressively moving in that direction. He said that success was the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Anyone that has a goal and they're moving towards it, they're successful. I think we should make a few waves. We should maybe stand out, be different. Not for the sake of being different,
Okay.
but because we are different. We all think different thoughts. And I believe we should start to think and build images in our mind of what we'd like to do and then set out and do it.
Okay.
Emerson did that, Edison did that, Marconi did that, Samuel Morse did that, Buckminster Fuller did that. We could go on and on and on. Okay, they were different, they stood out, they made a few waves. What you see here in the physical body is nothing but the physical manifestation of the higher side of my personality. And what we have to study, I think, is how does this non-physical part of my mind work? What happens when I think? Where do thoughts come from? How was this chair built? Somebody had to think. Thoughts are everywhere. And we pull thoughts into our mind and we build pictures or images in our mind. If I can build an image of something in my mind, I'm quite capable of building a physical replica of it in my world. You decide exactly what you want. And then you start to think. Now you're going to have thoughts come to your mind of why you can't get it. You have the ability in your conscious mind to reject that idea, kick it out of your mind. Thinking of why you can't do something is never going to do you any good. And keep thinking until you start to think of thoughts of how you can do it. And the way will be shown to you. It comes in the form of images in our mind. Think of how you can and not why you can't.
We get back what we put out. Our environment is a mirror, often a merciless mirror, of ourselves. And the people in our family, all the people in our world, will reflect back to us the attitude we present to them.
Learning is a lifelong process. You never stop learning. We can learn to do anything. We have phenomenal powers. If we used our body like we used our mind, we'd probably just move our little finger.
We tend to live up to our expectations. Take the attitude that there are a lot more reasons why you can reach those goals than fail in the attempt. Go after them. Work at it. Keep your attitude positive, cheerful, and expectant, and you'll get them. And as you do, you'll grow to new plateaus and be able to accomplish still more. And remember this, our environment, the world in which we find ourselves living and working, is a mirror of our attitudes and expectations. If we feel that our environment could stand some improvement, we can bring about that change for the better by improving our attitude. The world plays no favorites. It's impersonal. It doesn't care who succeeds or who fails, nor does it care if we change. Our attitude toward life doesn't affect the world and the people in it nearly so much as it affects us. You can number in the millions the jobs which are held but hated, the marriages which are tolerated but unhappy. the parents and children who fail to understand and love one another. All because of people who are waiting for the world and others to change toward them. Nothing can change until we do. When we change, our worlds will change. The answer is attitude.
I once read in a book where it said, when you read a good book through the second time, you don't see something in it that you didn't see before. You see something in yourself that wasn't there before. An educated person is not necessarily one who has an abundance of general or specialized knowledge. An educated person is one who has so developed the faculties of their mind that they may acquire anything they want or its equivalent without violating the rights of others. An educated person is the one that knows how to go and get what they want out of life. There's a law of opposites. It's called the law of polarity. Everything has its opposite. There's a right and a left side. There's a front and a back, an up and a down, a hot and a cold, positive and negative, yin the yang. You know, well, you can think negative or you can think positive, but you can't think both at the same time. And we have to train our mind to think or look for the positive or the good in things. There's good in everything. There's something good about it. Now, you may have to look to find out what it is, but there's something good in everything. There has to be a positive and a negative for anything to exist. But once we understand that there's this law of opposites, there's negative thoughts or positive thoughts. As the thought energy flows into our mind, we decide what we're going to think. When you pick up a book, the book is nothing but a picture that an author has painted in words. How he did such beautiful work. He said, I dream my painting, and then I paint my dream. They get the picture in the mind, and then paint it on the wall. And you'll often notice that people will shy away from you. They won't look you in the eye. They'll look down or look up. They'll never try to do anything of any great consequence because they don't think they can. They have a poor self-image. Every one of us has an image in our mind of ourselves, and it's called a self-image. Too many people don't know much about themselves, and so they don't have a very good image of themselves. We can do anything. The one point that all the great teachers, all down through history, have all agreed on, they've been in complete unanimous agreement on it, we become what we think about. Now, it may be fantasy at first, it might even appear to us as being a lie. Our thoughts control our feelings.
Okay.
Our feelings control our actions.
Ever since I can remember anything at all, the light, the smell, the sound and motion of the sea has been pure magic. Even even the mere intimation of its presence. Gulls flying a little way inland. The quality of light in the sky beyond hills which screen it from view. The lowing of foghorns in the night. If ever I have to get away from it all, and in the words of a Chinese poet, wash all the wrongs of life from my pores, there's simply nothing better than to climb out onto a rock and sit for hours with nothing in sight but sea and sky. Although the rhythm of the waves beats a kind of time, it's not clock or calendar time. It has no urgency. It's timeless time. Because I know I'm listening to a rhythm which has been just the same for millions of years. And it takes you out of the world of relentlessly ticking clocks. Clocks, for some reason or other, always seem to be marching. And armies never march to anything but doom. But there's no marching rhythm in the motion of waves. It harmonizes with the breath. It does not count our days. Its pulse is not in the stingy spirit of measuring, of marking out how much still remains. It's the breathing of eternity, like the Brahma of Indian mythology, who inhales and exhales, manifests and dissolves the worlds endlessly, forever. As a mere conception, that sounds appallingly monotonous. Until you listen to the breaking and washing of waves. Just in the past few weeks, I've come to live right on the edge of the water. I have a studio, library, place for writing in an old ferry boat, tied up on the waterfront of Sausalito, north of San Francisco. I suppose the nearest thing in America to a Mediterranean fishing village. Steep hills, clustered with little houses. And below, along the rim of the bay, a forest of masts, rocking almost imperceptibly against a background of water and wooded promontories. In some ways it's rather a messy waterfront, not just piers and boats, but junkyards, industrial buildings, and all the inevitable literature of our culture. But somehow the land and seascape absorbs and pacifies the mess. Sheds and shacks thrown together out of old timbers and plywood, heaps of disused lumber, rusted machinery, rotting hulls. All of this is transformed in the beneficent presence of the sea. Perhaps it's the quality of the light, especially early in the morning and towards evening, when the distinction of sky and water becomes uncertain, when the whole of space becomes opalescent, a sort of pearly luminous grey, and the rising or setting moon is straw yellow. In this light, all the rambling mess of sheds and junkyards is magical. Blessed with the white cries of gulls, and with the patterns of masts and ropes and boats at anchor, which put me in mind of landfalls a long way away, and of all the voyages of which one has dreamed. I look out now as I talk to you, across a wide space of nothing but water and birds, ending in a line of green slopes with clumps of trees. Right over the edge of the boat, the water contains, seemingly just under the surface, a ceaselessly moving network of reflected sunlight, through which a school of very tiny fish passes delightfully uncaught, and yet only a few yards from where we are moored. Tackle shops sell the marvelous salmon and crabs with which this particular area abounds. This is the paradox of the ocean. Sand, flying spray, pebbles and shells, driftwood, sparkling water, space incredibly luminous, with cloud banks along horizons, underlying skies into which one's imagination can reach forever. But under the surface of both sky and water, there's the grim business of preying. Men and birds against fish, fish against fish. The tortuous process of life continuing by the painful transformation of one form into another. To creatures who don't anticipate and reflect imaginatively upon this holocaust of eating and being eaten, it's perhaps not so terrible. But poor man, skillful beyond all other animals, by being able to think in time and knowing the future, he dies before he's dead, he shrinks from the shark's teeth before they bite him. He dreads the alien germ long, long before its banquet begins. Here is a gull that has picked a crab from a tide pool, sprawled now upon the sand. The crab shrinks from the walls of its shell, resounding to the tap, tap, tap of the gull's beak. Who's that knocking at my door? I suppose the shell of the crab, the clam or the mussel, is the boundary of its universe. To put ourselves in their position, we should have to imagine a knocking sound, louder and louder, that doesn't come from anywhere in particular, from the door or the walls or the ceiling or the floor. Think of a knocking that comes from everywhere, that beats against the boundaries of space and consciousness, that comes as the intrusion of an utterly unknown dimension into our own familiar world. Let me in. Let me in. I love you so much I could eat you. I love you to the very core, especially the soft, juicy parts, the vitals most tender and alive. Surrender to this agony, and you will be transformed into me. Dying to yourself, you will become alive as me. We shall all be changed in a moment. In the twinkling of an eye on the morning when the last trumpet sounds. For behold, I am he that stands at the door and knocks. There's no way of getting around it, is there? The gull isn't rapacious or greedy. It's just that his being alive at all is the same thing as eating crabs. Seabirds are transformations of fish. Men are transformations of wheat, chickens, and steers. And the love for the food is the agony of the food. To object to this inseparability of pleasure and pain, life and death, is simply to object to existence.
Hamburguesa mía.
No, gracias. Uf, estamos llenos.
¿Qué dijiste, Elisa?
Estamos llenos, si quieren un poquito de hamburguesa.
No, gracias. Uf, estamos llenos.
¿Qué dijiste, Elisa?
Estamos llenos. Dai, no, flipas de mierda. Últimamente.
Ahora entramos en transmisión el programa de Elisa y Cristian. Cristian y Elisa. La pareja. Entramos en transmisión el programa de Psiquiatría en pareja.
No, porque Ciro cuando estaba poniendo música.
¿Cómo es estar con Cristian, Elisa?
Dile.
No, porque Ciro cuando estaba poniendo música.
¿Cómo es estar con Cristian, Elisa?
O sea, qué pregunta. Una nueva.
Ay, sí.
Directo.
Con un trick,
¿Qué estamos por hacer?
con un static dance.
Static dance.
Y el Ciro va a estar ahí de DJ. Vamos a estar todos en un trick, cada uno con sus auriculares. Y el Ciro va a estar.
Reject stagnation. Reject the myth that learning is for young people. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Learn all your life, from your successes, from your failures. Bad times have a scientific value. These are occasions a good learner wouldn't miss. What is it trying to teach me? Individuals who remain vital have learned not to be imprisoned by fixed habits, attitudes, and routines. We build our own prisons and serve as our own jailers. But if we build the prisons ourselves, we can tear them down ourselves. If we're willing to learn, the opportunities are everywhere. We learn from our work and from our friends and families. We learn by accepting the obligations of life, by suffering, by taking risks, by loving, by bearing life's indignities with dignity. You learn to bear with the things you can't change. You learn to avoid self-pity. You learn not to burn up energy and anxiety. You learn that most people are neither for you nor against you, but rather are thinking about themselves. You learn that no matter how much you try to please, some people are never going to love you, a notion that troubles at first, but is eventually relaxing. Among your obligations is an appointment with yourself. One of the most valuable things you learn is that ultimately you're the one who's responsible for you. You don't blame others. You don't blame circumstances. You take charge. If you're going to keep on learning, your surest allies will be high motivation and enthusiasm. People can achieve meaning only if they've made a commitment to something larger than their own little egos, whether to loved ones, to fellow humans, to work, or to some moral or religious concept. Confidence is built upon an experience of success. When we first begin any undertaking, we're likely to have very little confidence because we haven't learned from experience that we can succeed. We need to form the habit of remembering past successes and forgetting the failures. This is the way both an electronic computer and the human brain are supposed to operate. Practice improves skill and success. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, and that though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through the toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given him to till. The power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do, nor does he know until he's tried. Trust thyself, Every heart vibrates to that iron string. No one can even estimate the number of people who live nervous, anxious, unhappy lives because they daily attempt the impossible, which is to be like someone else. There are people who don't realize the truth of Emerson's words that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide. He must have used the word suicide because we have to kill that which is natural in ourselves when we attempt to be like someone else. They need to recognize the truth also that the power that resides in them is new in nature, that it has never appeared. Before in just that way on.
Buenas noches, formas de vida cuánticas toroidales. Hoy empezaré el programa muy rápidamente porque me comí un plato de heterocrom y no me está cayendo nada bien. De hecho, me está palpitando el ano de una manera paradigmática. En esta noche les contaré quién es Paul Victoria y cómo es parte de las élites masónicas judías con conexiones con seres supradimensionales con la cara de tu padre. En su libro concluye que debemos generar una serie de robots al estilo Terminator y exterminar a todos los franceses por pronunciar mal la R. En minutos más, cuando termine de cagar, les diré más. No se disocien ni cambien su estado cuántico vesicular. Buenas noches, formas de vida cuánticas toroidales. Hoy empezaré el programa muy rápidamente porque me comí un plato de heterocrom y no me está cayendo nada bien. De hecho, me está palpitando el ano de una manera paradigmática. En esta noche les contaré quién es Paul Victoria y cómo es parte de las élites